Okay, guys, we are looking at our pike progressions here to work towards our handstand push-ups. And I'm going to show you a few examples where we're using the rings. If you don't have access to the rings, your TRX suspension setup is going to be a perfect substitute. But these are going to be really useful for people who find the parallel bar pike press-ups a little bit restrictive. This is because the floor isn't too far away from your hands, so there isn't that much of a deficit created. But also, it really keeps the form quite strict when it comes to the position of your shoulders. We can create a lot more movement with the rings or the TRX setup here. And what I'm going to show you is a step-by-step progression into how everybody can access a pike push-up. So this is a running theme of these big 7 exercises that we've got in the Baker's Dozen. But it's the idea that no matter what level of ability you're at, you can access these exercises. And I'll show you exactly what I mean here. A beginner who's first time stepping in the gym, this is going to be their variation of a pike press up. Your hands here, and then you press up. That is exactly the same motion as what we're doing in any form of our pike press up, no matter what it looks like. It's the idea that our shoulders are vertically pressing something up, whether that's air / our body weight, that is level 1. Whether we can then start to progress on to level 2 is dictated by whether you can do this or not. So if you can do this, you can move on to level 2. But this is the best possible demonstration that everybody can access these movements. It's just about adjusting the exercise to suit your current capabilities rather than us saying, your capabilities are down here, now do a pike press up. That's not what we're asking here. We're saying, how can we manipulate the exercise to ensure you still get access to the full range of motion of the exercise? And that is really key. We want everyone performing this full range of motion. So if you can do that, a simple press of the hands up towards the ceiling, we know that we can move on to your rings or your TRX. And what you'll see here is we want them at a suitable height so that we have enough, essentially enough support for our shoulders. So I'm bringing the rings up slightly here, and this means that it can still be very entry level for people who are just starting out with this setup. And then this position here, you can see how I've just gone from pressing up now to pressing down with a little bit more resistance fighting against me, i.e. maybe this is like 30% of my body weight that I'm pressing up. But you can see it's still a vertical pressing motion. So again, if you can do level 1 of pressing up your arms towards the ceiling, you can move on to this level 2. If you can do this level 2, you're going to walk the feet back slightly and perform level 3. Now, if that's feeling good, you're feeling confident that you can achieve the full range of motion, you can start to move on to the subsequent levels. The idea here is that you could apply your force negative method of training to any one of these levels. So if I wanted to, if this was my level, this arbitrary level 3, then I could, and I know that this is me working at 100% of my shoulder strength. My shoulder strength threshold is here. This level 3 is getting me working here. Then this is where I'd stick, and I'd spend 30 seconds lowering myself through this negative portion of the lift, this lowering phase, and then 10 to 15 seconds on the way back up. The whole while manipulating the position of my body to ensure that I'm working at 100%, but the lowering phase isn't going too quick and the concentric phase isn't going too quick. So how would I do that? I would, as you can see here, when we first start out on the rings, my feet are fairly close. That means I've got my lower body supporting me a little bit more. I've got a bend in the knees, and the rings are kind of at my side, but there's a lot of free movement in them, and I can bring myself up. Now, how I make it more difficult in this scenario is bringing the feet back a little bit, and then the exercise is less supported by my lower body, and my upper body, my shoulders specifically, are having to do more work. So that then means if I'm going through this lowering phase and I feel myself going too quickly, like it's 5 seconds in and I'm already at the bottom, that's probably a bad example. I'd probably start again. But if you feel like you're lowering through the exercise and you have less control, let's say, then all you need to do is manipulate your position of the body to make it easier so that you're helping yourself stay at 100% of your strength capacity. So all you do is walk the feet in and you'd adjust from level 3 to level 2.5, level 2. And that ensures that the lowering phase lasts as long as possible, but you're still working at 100% of your capacity. The lowering phase is gravity forcing you down with you actively trying to push yourself back up. So if you're working at 100%, trying to push yourself back up, but gravity is working at 120% to push you back down, you know you need to manipulate the position of your body to increase your 100% to 110, maybe 120%, and gravity slowly forces you down because you become fatigued and it eventually will always win the war. But we're saying that that manipulation of the body enables you to stay in the rep longer. And that's exactly what we're looking for in the lift here. So you're going to find where you can achieve your full range of motion. I then adjust the rings as you see here. And we're thinking about this as level 4. The rings are slightly lower. So I'm going to more depth. My upper body is doing slightly more work. My lower body is helping out slightly less. And as you can see again, I just walk the feet back and then in to try and find how my upper body can take on more of the load. And then this is where we start to get really interesting because we start to bring our shoulders over and in front of our wrists. And that is where the shoulders really start to do some work. So we get to a certain point where we're lowering the hands down, where it's no longer about moving our legs back, but actually moving them forward to put more weight into the arms. So initially we were walking the legs back to relinquish some of the support they were giving us. But as the rings move lower, as our hands move lower, we actually want to walk them forward because then we're more over our wrists and our shoulders are doing more work. Now you see the progressions continue here. I lower the rings down. I actually suggest coming onto your knees first because this will become quite intense the lower the rings are. As you can see, really using my upper body as much as possible, working the knees in, walking the knees in or working. And my shoulders are doing the brunt of the work here. And you can see it's even in that kneeling position, it's a challenge to push myself up. My shoulders are really having to do some work to push myself up there. Now, again, if this is your position, if this is where you're currently at, then you would stick here and you would make the lowering phase last 30 seconds and then the concentric phase last 10 to 15 seconds, all the while ensuring that your shoulders are working at 100% of their strength capacity. We'll play the video through as you see me increase the difficulty of these progressions, maybe coming into this kickstand position. Now you can really start to see how we're coming into that pike position of my upper body, my trunk being over my wrists and therefore requiring the shoulders to do a lot more work. I think I'm trying to figure out how to make it more difficult in this position. The other thing we can do here is manipulate the position of the hands. So the further your hands come back towards your wrists, obviously once you start the pike press, the more of your center of mass is going to be falling in front of your wrists as you go through the press, as you see here. Will you see here? Let me go back to this one. So you see, as I press myself down, now there's much more of my upper body, my shoulders, my trunk, even my hips to a certain extent that are coming over my wrists. And that means there's going to be a lot more force through the shoulders trying to keep you up, trying to actively push you back up through this lowering phase. So it becomes a lot more challenging. Then we're going to move on to the next variation, the next difficulty of the pike. And it can look anything like this. It can be like an amalgamation of all of these different types of variations. All you're thinking about is keeping it difficult in the, keeping the exercise difficulty in the shoulders rather than putting it into anywhere else. And now I start to show you what this is going to look like in a particular force negative rep, where we know that we're much stronger in the lowering phase. So let's say you're in this position here, the feet are quite far in, the hands are going back towards the hips so that we're putting the weight of the exercise, the difficulty of the exercise in our shoulders. And then you lower yourself through the lift. That whole lowering phase should last 30 seconds, but obviously for demonstration purposes, I don't take that long. And then we know we are weaker in the concentric portion of the lift compared to the eccentric portion, the lowering phase of the lift. So what I do is I manipulate the position of my body by bending my knees. This takes some of the load out of my shoulders and puts it back into my legs. So my legs are now supporting me as I push myself up through the lift. However, what's really key is I'm only supporting myself the minimal amount required in order to get me moving through the concentric portion of the lift at about 10 to 15 seconds. In those 10 to 15 seconds, my shoulders are working at 100% capacity, but what is required to get me up to that top position is, let's say, 150% capacity. That 50% comes from the manipulation of my body, and that is bending my knees, that is maybe bringing the rings either closer or further away, depending on where you are, to make the rep slightly easier. And all of that is going to contribute to that extra 50% that enables us to move through the concentric portion of the lift. So wherever you are, you're going to be manipulating the position of your body like so, making it 100% of your strength capacity on your shoulders on the lowering phase, 100% of your strength capacity in the shoulders in the concentric portion of the lift. And you can go through this video yourself to see the different variations, scaling from the easiest variation right the way up through these difficulties. I kind of skipped one there because I showed it in the other video, but obviously from here, you're going to bring your feet up onto a stepper. That's going to help. You'd then probably bring your feet up onto a chair or a box that is about knee height. So a platform that's like shin height, then knee height, then hip height, and then you see me moving on to a variation where this bin is just above hip height. We're getting the weight above the shoulders. I'm taking as long as I can to lower myself through the lift. And then this concentric portion of the lift is where I'm really working hard, pushing myself up, using the feet as much as possible, and manipulating the positions of the rings as much as possible. So this is going to be the example of me working at maximum effort in my force negative. Bringing one foot in, this is the level of difficulty that I'm currently at. But as you will see through the lift, as it gets harder and harder, I want to continue the lowering phase as long as possible. So I bring that foot down to enable me to continue the lowering phase. If I hadn't brought my foot down, I would fall straight to the bottom and the rep would be over and I wouldn't be working at 100%. Whereas bringing that foot down enabled me to extend the rep. Now you see I'm much weaker in the concentric portion of the lift than the lowering. So I implement that tool of bending my knees to put more of the weight back into my legs to support my shoulders in the 100% work that they're doing. And that enables me to slowly push myself up, completing the rep eventually, but putting in a lot of hard work to get there. And then as you see, I fail on that rep, but I still make the most out of it by just bringing one foot to the floor throughout this whole rep. My shoulders are still working at 100%. Eventually I have to bring both feet to the floor. Shoulders are still working at 100%. Even though both feet are on the floor, I am back to like level 2 of the pike press. I have accrued so much fatigue throughout these 3 reps that this is my shoulders working at 100%. Imagine you see me doing an overhead press and I'm pressing 60, and then you turn away and you turn back for a second and you see me now pressing 10 kilos above my head. You'll be thinking, well, where's the other 50 kilos? Because I know you can press that. I've accrued so much fatigue throughout these 3 reps that this is now the equivalent of that 60 kilos. Although it might look like I'm pressing 10 kilos, this is my equivalent to my maximum intensity effort. My shoulders working at 100%. And then eventually finishing off the rep and moving the bin back. Any questions on that, just give me a shout. But this is a demonstration of how all of these exercises, pike progression in particular here, can be manipulated to fit your current level of ability. And you can perform these 3 reps for 3 minutes, each lasting roughly 40 seconds, working at 100% of the strength capacity in your shoulders for the entirety